All right, guys. Happy Monday. Happy President's Day. I'm here with the amazing Lissette. Lissette, how you doing?
I'm awesome. How are you, Joe?
You are awesome. I'm awesome too, man. I love that. Um, Lizette actually had the idea for this video, and she had the idea for the video because she is working with someone right now who's going through a tough situation, right? That person wants to get out of the contract, the other person doesn't. So the question arises, when can I get out? How can I get out of a contract? So we'll go through Lizette's specific situation because she's not representing this person. It's someone that she knows of and they're talking, right? So we'll talk about it. We're not going to use names, addresses, anything like that, but we'll go through it. But before we do, I want to talk about buyers and sellers and some of the contingencies that you can use to get out of a contract. And you can do it legally. You can do it without any issues. You can get your money back if you're the buyer. It's not a problem. You move forward, right? As a seller, you cannot get out of a contract unless the buyer tries to negotiate something within the contract, within the time frame of the contract, and you say no and they won't budge. Now you can both decide to sign a cancellation and get out, right? So the easiest example of this is an inspection. So I'm buying Lizette's house and I say, hey, I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. Here's all the terms. And she says, awesome. I say, awesome. Boom, we got a contract, right? Inspection happens and she's got crappy AC. Doesn't matter what the issue is. With that, I can say, Lizette, I expect either money or it fixed or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. And Lizette says, Joe, get lost. And I say, okay, then I want out. Now, Lizette, the seller, can say, yes, if I've got to fix this AC or pay for it, I want to get out. I'm good with that. You can absolutely do that all day long. By the way, guys, if you got comments, questions, anything while I'm talking, go put them down there, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. More than happy to answer them, right? I want to make sure you guys understand this whole process. So that's pretty common for a seller. But other than that, appraisal is another one. If the appraisal comes in short, you got four things you can do. Number one, you can drop the price as a seller. Number two, you can increase the amount of cash that you're going to bring as a buyer, right? Number three, you can do something in the middle. So if it's a $15,000 shortage, maybe the buyer comes up with $7,500 cash and the seller drops the price $7,500. Or maybe it's 5 and 10 or 2 and 13. It doesn't matter as long as it equals that difference, right? And then the fourth option is the deal falls apart. So for that reason, the deal can fall apart. Now the buyer would still get their escrow money back, right? And everybody would still be whole and they just have to go their separate ways. But that's another reason. For buyers, if you have a contingency and you can come up with an unlimited amount of contingencies, right? But the common ones are inspection, appraisal, financing. Let's say you lose a job or it's a couple and one of the people in the couple dies or your credit gets dinged or you go buy a boat, don't go buy a boat, something like that, right? Now you might lose your financing. And while that sucks, you're not going to lose your escrow deposit. You can still get your money back because you had that financing contingency in there. But you can put a contingency on there. I could buy Lizette's house and say, I will only move forward on the purchase of your home if you have purple hair at closing. And she just says, I decided I'm not going to do purple hair at closing. Okay, that's the weirdest contingency I've ever heard of. But on something like that, you can, and I don't say that because it's normal. I say that because you can literally come up with any contingency that you want to write into a contract, right? I'm not saying I suggest it, but you can do it. So those are the common reasons. So with all of that said, Lizette, tell us the story of this person that you've been working with.
Okay, so I have this I want to say I'm going to say client, but she's not my client. I am not the listing agent. She was brought to me by a third party that I know very well. And unfortunately, she is quite older. So she found herself in a situation where she put her house for sale by owner. She had no representation from any agents. And it went under contract very quickly. Great price, I might say. But now she was in a situation where she was planning to relocate out of state. And unfortunately, because of family situations, that was no longer possible. So she found herself in a very tricky situation where she would have to stay here in Florida. And because of what she's looking for and what she sold for, it really just did not make sense for her to sell her property if she was staying. And her heart was not in it. And we're talking about someone that's over 80 years old. So we know this is a lot of stress on them and their health as well at that age. So as I'm taking her out, we're looking at properties and I just see she's not in it. And I'm like, listen,
You're helping
why
her
don't
on the
we?
buy side, right?
Yes, on the buy side, I am. And I'm like, listen, why don't we see what we could do to try to get you out of contract? So she did have a private meeting with the buyers, and unfortunately, it did not go as planned. It did not go very well.
Okay,
And
hold
her,
on, hold on, hold on. I don't want to tell them, I want to go over one thing first.
yeah,
Okay, so if this gal, this seller, had written into the contract, I will move forward, except in the situation where, and then she can talk about her family situation, right? Maybe it was she's moving with her daughter and her daughter's got to buy a home. You could make a contingency on that. If it happens, I'll move forward. If not, sorry, buyer, I'm not selling. I've seen it in this market, right? I've seen a lot, and this will impact your price in a negative way, but you can say, I will go pending with you, Mr. Buyer, but I've got 30 days to go out and find the home that I want and get under contract. Otherwise, I can kick you out. Now, again, a lot of buyers are going to say, and you're probably going to get lesser price for that. But you can do that, right? This woman didn't do that, unfortunately. So now, what is she facing? How did that meeting go?
it didn't go well. They basically came to the decision that they were not going to back out of the contract, and if they were, they wanted $10,000 from the seller. And
Mm.
we're talking to also someone that's retired. They're on a limited fixed income. It's a very sad situation. So we kept on looking, and I could just tell her heart is not into it. And I told her, listen, let me step in, let me see what I could do. Unfortunately, I was able to negotiate a deal where we do not have to come out with so much money out of pocket. Instead of 10,000, we're now at $5,000, and she's able to back out of the contract and stay in her home that she knows and she feels comfortable and safe in. And at the end of the day, that's the best option for her. And as agents, that's our job sometimes to do things that doesn't benefit us, but to make sure that it benefits our clients, no matter what the situation is.
So the legal threat there is, right, from the buyer to the seller, if the seller will not move out. Because a lot of sellers might be listening to this, owners of homes thinking, you can't kick me out of my house. You can. You can. And the way you do it, it's called specific performance, right? You have to perform in accordance with the contract that you agreed to in writing. And if you don't, you can bring it to court and you can force people to follow through with the contract. You can do it with anything, not just real estate. I can do it with business. I can do it with my baseball card collection. I can do it with anything I want, man. If you agreed to something in writing and you're not following through, I can take it to court and sue you for specific performance. I'll tell you, in all the years that I've sold homes, I've never seen anybody actually do it, but it gets threatened a lot. And usually the threat alone, along with a letter from an attorney, is enough. And people say, got it. Let's just do it, right? But this is a scenario where, you'd made mention, Lissette, of the price being great. Was the price great for the seller or was the price great for the buyer?
I think it was a good price point. When we do the comps, it comped out. It was a fair
It was fair
price.
market. Okay, gotcha.
Fair market, yeah.
So I just, again, I'm not like pro realtor, use a realtor. I'm not going to say that at all. I do think there is a ton of value that a professional is going to bring, right? But I think you've got to weigh it. Do you want to try to save commission? And you're probably not going to save it all because the buyer's going to have a buyer's agent. You still got to pay somebody, right? And now who's going to do all your documents? Who's going to do, like, literally every day for 30 to 45 days, I'm in contact with an inspector, with an appraiser, with the other agent, with my client, with their client, with title, with everybody, making sure that all of the issues that pop up get solved and they get solved quickly. To save that money, you have to think, am I willing to take on all that risk and all that effort, possibly, probably not knowing what you're doing, right? This gal said, yes, I'm willing to take on the risk. And man, is it bitter in the butt, almost to the tune of 10 grand, but thank God Lissette got him down to 5. Now, do you think she's going to move forward with that?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm meeting with all parties today to make sure. Yeah. And you know what? Nothing gets to me more in seeing someone that's older in the situation. So at first, having buyers that weren't willing to work with her stung a little bit. But I think that when I stepped in and they saw, wait, she does have representation, she has someone on her side, maybe they saw we can't push her around, and they give in. They really did the second I stepped in. It was amazing.
It's amazing of you. That's pretty awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, Lissette. Well, that's great. So, guys, just an important lesson to learn. And I think, too, a lot of people, I get the question all the time, especially with first-time home buyers, first-time home sellers, is, how would this deal possibly fall apart? At what point can I no longer back out of the deal, right? For a seller, once you sign that contract on day one, unless the buyer's asking more of you, right? After inspection, after appraisal, because it's short, something like that, you cannot get out legally, right? Unless you negotiate it or you say, sue me, and just hope they don't. You're not going to get out of it. For a buyer, you got all kinds of contingencies, but you need to know your contingencies. You need to know when they happen. And I'll tell you, I've met a lot of people who've bought without an agent, and they'll come to me, Joe, I just found out the roof is 21 years old and we close next week. How do I get out of this or negotiate a new roof or both? And I'll say, did you put an inspection contingency in? And it's either no or yes, but I gave myself 5 days, 7 days, whatever it is. Okay, when was that 5 days? 3 weeks ago. Okay, well, you're out of luck, unfortunately. And you can try to back out. Let's go down that road just for a second, okay? Let's say that happened. You have no contingencies left and you want to back out as a buyer. What do? You can try to back out, and then it's a negotiation, just like Lissette is talking about. And they can say no, and they could sue you for specific performance, and they could make you get the loan if court deemed that that's what you had to do, right? If you back out, you're almost always, and this is more of social norms than legalities, because legalities say you have to buy it. If they're going to let you out, social norms state that you're probably going to have to give up all or most of your escrow deposit. So if you put $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 down, see you later, it's probably gone. If you go with new construction and for any reason your financing falls through, and they don't care, man, it's done. It's gone because they had to commit to a home that they otherwise weren't going to commit to, right? So they're going to keep your deposit and they're going to use that as the marketing funds to try to get that sucker sold again, right? Because they're in it to win it with money. So can you try to get out even if you have no contingencies? All day long, and you should, but you are not in the driver's seat. That's what you need to know. So just make sure you've got all your ducks in a row, you've thought all your contingencies, and you've listed them out. Lissette, is there anything that you would want to add to this that maybe I'm missing or would add more value?
When you're under contract and you want to get out of contract, it's just a sticky situation for both the buyer and the seller. And unfortunately, either party is going to come out unhappy at the end, one way or another. The best you could do is make sure you have a realtor on your side, and also talk to a real estate attorney. They would know best and see and discuss what your options are.
Great points. Well, Lissette, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a great topic that I know we've seen several people. If they haven't gone through it, they've at least talked through it. So I just appreciate it. Thank you so much. Everybody watching, have an awesome day.
Bye, guys.